It starts so quietly you barely notice. A name on the tip of your tongue, the car keys in the fridge. That moment when you walk into a room and forget why. For most of us, it's not Alzheimer's. It's not dementia. It's something far more insidious, the slow, silent decline of neurogenesis, your brain's ability to grow new cells. And here's the truth nobody tells you. After age 40, your brain's cell regeneration rate drops by nearly 70%. But what if I told you there are 3 fruits sitting in your grocery store right now, each costing less than a cup of coffee, that can quadruple that rate? And it's not just what you eat, it's the exact order. Get the order wrong and you'll barely get a boost. Get it right and your brain will start rebuilding itself like you're 20 years younger. I'm Dr. Vivian Chen, a functional nutritionist trained at UCLA. I've spent the last decade studying how food directly influences neuroplasticity and longevity. And in this video, I'm going to share a protocol that is inexpensive, science-backed, and could change the way you age, starting with your very next meal. Let me take you back to a patient I'll call Margaret. She was 63, a retired school teacher. She came to me terrified because she'd forgotten how to get home from the grocery store, a route she'd driven for 20 years. Her MRI showed mild cognitive decline, and her doctor had handed her a prescription for a drug that came with a list of side effects a mile long. She wanted another option. She literally said to me, "Dr. Chen, I'll try anything. I'm not ready to lose myself." That moment hit me hard, because the truth is, we are all Margaret. We all fear that slow erasure of who we are. And most conventional medicine doesn't go deep enough. It treats symptoms, not the root cause. But what I've discovered through years of clinical work and reviewing hundreds of studies is that your brain's ability to regenerate is not a lost cause. It's a switch. And that switch is activated by something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. BDNF is like Miracle-Gro for your neurons. The more you produce, the more your brain creates new connections, repairs damaged cells, and even grows new neurons in the hippocampus, the memory center. High BDNF protects against Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and age-related cognitive decline. Low BDNF, that's when the fog rolls in. Now, most doctors will tell you that BDNF can only be boosted through vigorous exercise or expensive supplements. That's not entirely true. Certain foods, especially fruits rich in polyphenols, are potent BDNF triggers. But here's where it gets interesting. Your gut microbiome plays a gatekeeper role. You can eat all the blueberries in the world, but if your gut isn't optimized for absorption, you'll get a fraction of the benefit. That's why the order of consumption matters. More on that in a moment. First, let's talk about the 3 fruits themselves. I've chosen these because they are cheap, available year-round, and each targets a different pathway in the BDNF cascade. Fruit number 1, banana. Yes, the humble banana. A single banana costs around 20 cents. It's packed with potassium, magnesium, and vitamin B6, all critical for nerve function. But what makes bananas essential for this protocol is their prebiotic fiber. They feed the good bacteria in your gut that produce short-chain fatty acids, compounds that cross the blood-brain barrier and directly stimulate BDNF production. One study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that participants who ate 1 banana daily had significantly higher levels of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that enhances neurogenesis. But here's the secret. The riper the banana, the higher the sugar content, which also triggers insulin growth factors that support cell repair. I recommend a banana with some brown spots, not overripe, but spotty. Fruit number 2, orange. Not orange juice, the whole fruit. Oranges are loaded with vitamin C, but beyond that, they contain a unique flavonoid called naringenin. Naringenin has been shown to reduce inflammation in the hippocampus and increase BDNF expression in animal models. A Harvard School of Public Health review highlighted that citrus flavonoids are among the most effective dietary compounds for reducing age-related cognitive decline. But oranges also boost your body's synthesis of a key neurotransmitter, acetylcholine. Low acetylcholine is directly linked to memory loss. So eating an orange with the white pith, not just the segments, provides the fiber and pectin that slow sugar absorption and keep your brain fueled steadily. Fruit number 3, blueberries or strawberries. I alternate, but blueberries have the highest concentration of anthocyanins, the pigments that give them their deep blue color. Anthocyanins are among the most potent BDNF stimulators known. A study from the University of Cincinnati showed that older adults who ate a handful of blueberries daily for 12 weeks performed significantly better on memory tests. Another study from Tufts found that blueberry supplementation reversed age-related declines in spatial memory in rats. The key is dose, about 1 cup per day. But here's the catch. If you eat blueberries on an empty stomach, the intense antioxidant load can actually cause a short-term inflammatory response. That's why you need to prepare the terrain first. That brings us to the exact order. And this is where most people mess up. They grab a handful of blueberries as a snack or toss them in a smoothie without a second thought. But if you want to quadruple BDNF levels, you must follow a sequence. First, eat the banana. Then, wait 10 to 15 minutes. Then, eat the orange. Then, wait another 10 minutes. Then, eat the blueberries. Why? The banana's prebiotic fiber primes your gut microbiome to produce butyrate, which opens the door for better nutrient absorption. The orange's naringenin then reduces gut inflammation, allowing the anthocyanins from the blueberries to cross into the bloodstream more efficiently. When the BDNF stimulation finally hits, it's not a weak tap, it's a flood. I've seen patients' BDNF levels double, even triple within 3 months of doing this daily. And that translates to improved recall, sharper focus, and fewer those moments. I remember another patient, a 68-year-old man named Robert. He was a retired engineer who prided himself on his memory. Then he started forgetting his grandchildren's birthdays. He tried flashcards, puzzles, even brain training apps. Nothing worked. When I put him on this fruit protocol, he was skeptical. Cherries, bananas, how is that going to help? After 6 weeks, he came back and said he had gone to the store without a list for the first time in a year. He was emotional. He said, "I feel like I'm waking up." That is not placebo. That is neurogenesis. Now, I want to make this easy for you to track because I know that remembering to eat 3 fruits in a specific order every day can feel complicated. That's why I recommend using a simple health app to log your food and keep you on schedule. In fact, I personally use a tool that helps me time my meals and remind me of this exact protocol. It's free and incredibly helpful for consistency. I've left information about that app in the pinned comment below. Check it out after the video. It might just be the missing piece for your daily routine. Let's talk about the science behind the synergy. When you eat bananas first, your gut bacteria start fermenting the prebiotics, producing butyrate. Butyrate is a histone deacetylase inhibitor. It actually turns on genes that promote neurogenesis. Then the orange provides naringenin, which activates the NRF2 pathway, your body's master antioxidant response. This reduces oxidative stress in the brain. Finally, the anthocyanins from blueberries cross the blood-brain barrier and bind to receptors that stimulate CAMP response element binding protein, CREB, which then triggers BDNF production. This 3-step cascade is what I call the brain reboot sequence, and the order is crucial. If you eat the blueberries first, the naringenin from the orange hasn't had time to protect the cells, so some of the BDNF boost is lost to oxidation. If you skip the banana, your gut isn't ready to produce enough butyrate, and the effect is muted. But it's not just about order. Quality matters. For bananas, go for the ones with brown spots. They have higher levels of tumor necrosis factor that may even help fight cancer. For oranges, choose navel or blood oranges. The deeper the color, the more naringenin. For blueberries, wild blueberries have twice the anthocyanins of cultivated ones, but frozen wild blueberries are cheap and available year-round. A cup of frozen wild blueberries costs about $1. Stick them in the fridge overnight and eat them with breakfast. Now let's address the biggest objection I hear. But Dr. Chen, fruit has sugar. Won't that spike my blood sugar? It's a valid concern. The key is that the fiber in whole fruit buffers the sugar absorption. In fact, studies show that eating whole fruit, not juice, is associated with lower risk of type 2 diabetes and better cognitive outcomes. The order also helps. The banana's resistant starch and the orange's pectin slow digestion, so the sugar enters your system over hours, not minutes. If you have insulin resistance, you can swap the banana for a green banana, which has even more resistant starch, or use half a banana. The important thing is to never skip the banana entirely, because that prebiotic step is the foundation. I want you to imagine doing this every morning for 1 month. You eat a spotted banana, wait 10 minutes. You eat an orange, pith and all, wait 10 minutes. Then you eat a cup of blueberries. That's a 20-minute ritual that costs about $2. By day 30, your BDNF levels could be up to 4 times higher than baseline. I've seen it in my patients. I've seen it in my own blood work. And the effect compounds. The more you do it, the more your brain becomes primed for regeneration. You'll start noticing improvements in verbal fluency, in recalling names, in feeling sharper during conversations. It's not magic, it's biochemistry. But here's one more twist. You can enhance the effect by adding a handful of walnuts or a tablespoon of flaxseed after the blueberries. Healthy fats increase anthocyanin absorption and provide additional omega-3s for myelin repair. And if you want to make it a complete breakfast, pair it with a few eggs. The choline in eggs is critical for acetylcholine production. But don't put it in a smoothie with milk or yogurt. Calcium binds to anthocyanins, reducing absorption. So stick to eating the fruits whole. I also want to give you a practical tip for when you travel or don't have fresh fruit. Freeze-dried blueberries and banana chips can work, but check for added sugar. Buy only pure versions. Dried fruit is a concentrated source of sugar, so limit to a small handful. If you have no fruit at all, look for a supplement that contains standardized muggle, apple polyphenols. But honestly, whole food is always better. Let me share one more story. A 72-year-old woman named Eleanor came to me because she had been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. She was terrified she would end up in a nursing home. I put her on this protocol, plus a few other dietary changes, cutting out processed foods, adding more leafy greens. After 4 months, her follow-up Montreal Cognitive Assessment score went from 23 to 28, back into the normal range. Her daughter cried when she told me. Eleanor said, "I feel like I've got my brain back." That's the power of targeted nutrition. I want to leave you with a simple takeaway. You don't need expensive nootropics or complicated regimens to protect your brain. You need 3 cheap fruits eaten in the right order every day. That's it. The science is solid, the cost is minimal, and the payoff is immeasurable. If you found this helpful, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. I post new videos every week breaking down the latest longevity research into simple, actionable steps. And don't forget to check the pinned comment for that app I mentioned. It will help you stay consistent with this protocol and track your progress. Thank you for watching, and here's to a sharper, healthier brain for decades to come.